Okie dokie. When Izanami perished during the birth of their child, Kagutsuchi, the world of Izanagi was shattered. Izanami was not merely a companion, she was his divine counterpart, his muse, his heart. The pain of losing her was like a crushing weight on his soul, an agony so deep and profound that it engulfed his entire being. His grief was more than tears and sorrow. Standing beside the lifeless body of his beloved wife, Izanagi was consumed with overwhelming sadness and confusion. Our tale begins with Izanagi fleeing the underworld. It was an event triggered by his escape from the shadowy depths after the harrowing encounter with his deceased wife, Izanami. However, his bid for freedom would not go unchallenged. Hot on his heels is Yomatsu Shikomi, a fearsome and relentless hag of the underworld. Her ghostly appearance and determination make her the epitome of dread, setting an atmosphere thick with danger. Yomatsu Shikomi's pursuit is unyielding, her eyes, burning with infernal fire, never leave Izanagi, as she covers ground with terrifying speed and intent. This chase scene underlines the desperation in Izanagi's flight. What can only be described as a true test of wit and resourcefulness, Izanagi realizes that outrunning Yomatsu Shikomi isn't enough. He has to outsmart her. So in a moment of quick thinking, Izanagi reaches up and removes his black headdress, and as it leaves its hand, something extraordinary happens. The headdress transforms into a cluster of grapes. It's as if magic itself is stepping in to aid Izanagi in his desperate flight. Yomatsu Shikomi, unable to resist the tempting sight and smell of the grapes, halts her relentless chase. She crouches down, picking the grapes and devouring them hungrily. This brief distraction works to Izanagi's advantage, granting him a precious few moments to widen the distance between himself and his pursuer. It's a small victory, but in this deadly chase, every second counts. Izanagi's second ingenious tactic unfolds as he deftly breaks off his comb known as Yutsusumagushi. As soon as the broken pieces touch the ground, they also undergo a mystical transformation, sprouting up as lush bamboo shoots. This sudden appearance of food proves irresistible to Yomatsu Shikomi, and she momentarily halts her relentless pursuit again, driven by an insatiable hunger. Methodically, she pulls out each bamboo shoot and devours them one by one. This clever distraction buys Izanagi more precious time, allowing him to gain some more distance. His resourcefulness and quick thinking once again slowed down the relentless chase, even if it's only for a moment. And despite his clever distractions, Yomatsu Shikomi's pursuit was far from deterred. Soon, a formidable array of 1,500 underworld spirits and fierce deities joined her relentless chase. Among them were 8 thunder deities, each one more fearsome and powerful than the last. The presence of these additional pursuers significantly heightened the intensity and urgency of the chase, turning what was already a harrowing escape into an almost insurmountable ordeal for Izanagi. With the horde of spirits and deities echoing through the underworld and the thunderous roar of the deities adding to the chaos, the pressure of Izanagi was immense. His journey was no longer just about outsmarting a single relentless hag, but about surviving the onslaught of an entire underworld army, each spirit and deity bent on ensuring he never escaped their grasp. The stakes were higher, the odds slimmer, and yet the resilience of Izanagi never wavered as he continued to run, each step driven by the sheer will to survive. Izanagi, now cornered and feeling the mounting pressure of the underworld's army's pursuit, swiftly draws his legendary sword, Totsuka-no-Tsurugi. This is no ordinary weapon. This is a blade of immense power and historical significance in Japanese mythology. And with a swift, determined motion, he brandished the sword in a defensive stance, its sharp edge gleaming ominously in the dim light of the netherworld. This action serves as a daring attempt to ward off the oncoming spirits and deities, each step of theirs echoing with menace. The underworld entities, undeterred and resolute, continue their relentless advance, despite the formidable presence of the Totsuka-no-Tsurugi in Izanagi's hands. The pursuing spirits press on, driven by an unstoppable force that even the might of a legendary blade cannot completely deter. This moment amplifies the tension, highlighting both Izanagi's bravery and the sheer inexorability of his pursuers. Izanagi finally reaches a critical juncture known as the flat slope or even pass. This strategic location marks the entrance to the underworld, and it's here that Izanagi plans to make his final, most desperate stand against the relentless pursuers. The significance of this place isn't just geographical, it's symbolic. It represents the thin line between life and death, a fleeting moment where hope flickers against overwhelming odds. With the spirits and deities hot on his heels, Izanagi braces himself for an intense confrontation. His every decision, his every move now carries the weight of survival. And just when the chase seemed never-ending, Izanagi reached into his arsenal of tricks and pulled out a surprising yet potent defense. With a swift motion, he hurled 3 peaches towards the oncoming horde of spirits and deities. These weren't ordinary peaches. They were imbued with a magical essence that had the power to repel even the most determined of pursuers. As the 3 peaches hit the ground, their magic sprang to life, creating a powerful barrier that stopped the spirits dead in their tracks. Almost instantly, the underworld denizens were forced to retreat. Their relentless pursuit momentarily halted. This brief respite gave Izanagi the precious seconds he needed to continue his flight from the underworld, showing once again his resourcefulness and determination to escape. But even as the hordes of spirits fell back, the chase was far from over. Izanagi found himself confronted by Izanami, his former lover turned relentless pursuer. This encounter was deeply personal, charged with emotions that went beyond mere survival. Izanami was now filled with unmistakable fury and betrayal. Her anger stemmed not just from Izanagi abandoning her in the underworld, but also from his evident desire to escape the bonds that once connected them. This wasn't just about a chase through the underworld, it was a confrontation ripe with the intense conflict of their complicated history. As Izanagi stood his ground, their eyes met, an exchange fraught with a mix of sorrow, rage, and lingering affection. It was clear that this confrontation was different from the earlier distractions and defensive maneuvers. This was a clash of wills between 2 immense but tragically estranged figures of mythology. And after his escape and closing off of the entrance to the underworld, Izanagi's despair evolved into a fierce, burning anger. Izanagi turned his sorrow into a singular, unwavering purpose: divine retribution. The weight of losing Izanami to the fires of childbirth was an unbearable burden, one that twisted his sorrow into the bitter sting of rage. His heart filled with the tempest of his emotions, Izanagi no longer saw Kagutsuchi as a newborn deity, but as the very embodiment of the disaster that shattered his world. Driven by the death of his anguish, Izanagi resolved that Kagutsuchi, whose birth had resulted in such irrevocable loss, must be held accountable. To Izanagi's mind, there was no distinction between the unfortunate event and the deity himself. Kagutsuchi symbolized everything taken from him: the joy of his companionship with Izanami, the promise of their shared future, and the comfort of her presence. In seeking to punish Kagutsuchi, Izanagi believed it was an act of justice, a necessary step to rectify the imbalance caused by Izanami's death. This divine retribution, however grim, seemed the only path left for him to regain a semblance of control over the chaos that had engulfed his life. Kagutsuchi's life became the offering Izanagi deemed necessary to restore order and to quench the inferno of his grief. This decision wasn't just about punishment. It was also about the desperate need for closure. Izanagi's determination to slay his own offspring wasn't an easy resolve. It was shaped by the severe demands of divine justice and the immutable laws of the cosmos that even deities like him could not escape. The tragic irony of targeting Kagutsuchi underscored the complexities of divine relationships, where the line between creation and destruction, life and death, blurred. Izanagi knew he could not confront Kagutsuchi with just any weapon. He needed something as powerful and significant as the emotions driving him. He reached for Totsuka-no-Tsurugi, the legendary sword of 10 fists. Renowned for its great length and formidable power, it was a weapon befitting the gravity of the task at hand. The Totsuka-no-Tsurugi was more than just a physical tool. It was imbued with a symbolic power that extended beyond its sharp edge. Izanagi took the sword in his hands, took a few practice swings, and every heavy movement of the sword mirrored the weight of his sorrow. This ancient sword would serve his purpose. It wasn't merely an instrument of destruction. It was a means to restore some semblance of balance to his shattered world. With Totsuka-no-Tsurugi, Izanagi felt the power needed to confront the cause of his beloved Izanami's death and to bring an end to the torment that was consuming him. Prepared for the task at hand, Izanagi's grip tightened around the sword's hilt. The stage was set for an act of vengeance that would forever change the destiny of gods and mortals alike. Izanagi confronted Kagutsuchi, the source of his profound grief. The encounter, steeped in emotion, took on a fateful gravity. The act of striking down his own child was not something to be taken lightly. As Izanagi faced the newborn fire deity, his mind was a whirlwind of memories and loss. He raised Totsuka-no-Tsurugi, and in this moment of intense emotional conflict, the sword became an extension of his very being, channeling his heartbreak and fury. The act itself was both swift and powerful, carried out with a precision that spoke of the deep pain driving Izanagi. The swordsman's hand did not waver as he brought the blade down upon Kagutsuchi. Each movement was deliberate, each slash a testament to the god's own capacity for suffering and retribution. And in that critical moment, as Kagutsuchi fell, the air seemed to crackle with the raw power of the divine. The earth trembled beneath them, and the very act of slaying Kagutsuchi became something more than a personal vendetta. It was the final part of the purification ritual to purge the impurities from Izanagi's body, stemming from Izanami's death. The blood of the fire deity streamed forth, each drop representing not just the end of a life, but the beginning of a new cycle. The sacrifice of Kagutsuchi marked a significant shift in the balance of the divine order. Izanagi's strike was a cathartic release of his pent-up emotions, a way to confront and overcome the overwhelming sorrow that had gripped his heart. In this act of divine execution, the chaos and corruption of death were pushed back, making room for the potential of renewal. The act of slaying Kagutsuchi, while born of grief and anger, ultimately served as a powerful agent of purification. Kagutsuchi's blood spilled onto the earth, staining it with divinity and tragedy. From this violent end, something remarkable happened. The drops of Kagutsuchi's blood did not simply disappear. They birthed new life. Several new deities emerged from the pool of blood, each one a different facet of the natural and divine world. This phenomenon perfectly encapsulates a recurring theme within Japanese mythology, the idea that creation often arises from destruction. For instance, the blood that flowed from Kagutsuchi's wounds, we see the genesis of powerful gods ready to take their place in the pantheon. This transformative event highlights how even in the moments of profound loss and chaos, there is the potential for new beginnings and growth. It's a reminder that the cycle of life and death is interconnected, and from the depths of grief and anger, renewal and creation can emerge. Izanagi's act of slaying Kagutsuchi held profound symbolic significance. It wasn't merely an impulsive deed born of grief and anger. It was a calculated step in Izagi's broader effort to purify himself from the impurities of death and the underworld, the Yomi. Izanagi's journey there to retrieve his wife left him spiritually tainted. Purification in Japanese culture, known as hare, is crucial for restoring balance and spiritual order. Izanagi's decision to execute Kagutsuchi was an act infused with this intent. By slaying the fire deity, he sought to cleanse the corruption that had taken root following Inazami's demise and his subsequent exposure to Yomi's decay. The significance of this act can be seen in its ritualistic overtones. The shedding of Kagutsuchi's divine blood was not just an act of vengeance, but a deliberate measure to rid the world of the taint of death. All right, that's all I got for today. Thanks for listening. If you like it, hit that subscribe button for us. If you don't like it, that's okay too. Other than that, have a great day.